today from not just one individual, but we are blessed to have two individuals, including one who came all the way from Germany. So, a little round here. Terry Barnhart and Michael, and I want to make sure I pronounce your name correctly, Keuthen. Okay, Michael Keuthen. So we're looking forward to this talk on the Battle of Oberkirchen. But first, I wish to remind people who are attending here of a couple of things for our coffee and conversation. So just a little bit of boilerplate here. One of the things we do, and I know it gets kind of tiresome, but we want to make sure that we definitely give a thanks to those people who donate, whether it is their time or money to the museum, whether it's our volunteers or the many donors that sit there and help make this museum run. So a big thank you goes out, a big shout out to those people. You can see a couple of them listed here, but there are many more. And if you do volunteer at the museum, or if you're interested in volunteering at the museum, please let any of the staff know here. We can definitely hook you up. Couple of reminders, please sign into the visitors log if you have not already. We do need to keep count of people who attend these talks, people who visit the museum. We have one of those upstairs. I think most of you probably saw that. Hopefully you were directed to sign in there. And we have one downstairs here, right out the door. If you did not sign in, that's okay, but please make sure that you sign in before you leave today. A reminder to turn off or at least silence your cell phone. That's just a courtesy to our speakers today. And a big reminder, that's why it's in yellow and in bigger font, to become a museum member. We are always looking for those individuals interested in becoming a museum and a patron member of the museum. You can do that very easily. We have the forms for you to fill out, and it's simply writing a check. And then make sure that you contact any one of the members of the museum here who's wearing a red or a blue vest, and they can get that process going for you.
We take cash also.
Yes, we take cash. We haven't figured out how to do credit cards yet, but someday. Yeah. Or Venmo. Yeah. Your donations make this museum possible. Just another reminder for that. One of our great supporters is Veterans Life magazine. And you may see copies of that magazine around the museum. Those are free copies. So please feel free to grab one, take it with you. But they have been a great supporter of the museum. We have kind of a wonderful symbiotic relationship between us. We offer them certain articles and we give them a heads up for events that we have coming up, and they are wonderful enough to advertise for us and give us some marketing out there. We also have a brand new exhibit, relatively brand new, that is upstairs, and we encourage you to take a look at that, perhaps after the talk, and that is the end of World War II and the Pacific War. An interesting exhibit because one of the main pieces in the exhibit, one of the centerpieces, is a 10-foot-long model of the battleship Missouri, the same battleship, of course, where the Japanese signed the surrender in 1945. So definitely check that out. Interesting model that was built by one of our own, Jerry Galvin, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. Upcoming coffee and conversation talks. September 13th, we will have Fred Martin. He's been a speaker here before. Some of you are familiar with him. He's done a lot of research on the China, Burma, India theater during World War II. And that's one that Americans have relatively little knowledge of. So he's done some incredible research, and he's going to be talking about some Colorado veterans who have a very direct connection to serving in that theater during World War II. In 27 September, we have Tom Jacobs, who is a Vietnam veteran, former Marine, or I should never say former Marine, right? Any of you who are Marines here? He's a Marine. But he spent time in Vietnam during the war, and then he also went back there about, I think, 5 or 10 years ago. So I'm very interested in his talk to see how he kind of compares and contrasts the countryside when he was there during the war and what the country is doing now. With that, if you'll give me just a minute here, I'm going to switch over and I will introduce our speakers.
Don?
Yes?
Just a reminder, also coming up in September and November, on September 20th, Coffee and Conversations are the 2nd and 4th, but on September 20th, we have Broomfield Days. And so Broomfield Days, if anybody's been to Broomfield Days, it's in the park here, but we will be open and we'll have a lot of people coming through on that particular day. Then on November 11th is Veterans Day. And Veterans Day is a big deal for us. We have a celebration on the front lawn of the museum, and what has been really great for the last few years. I hope it will continue. But it's going to be a very nice ceremony with music, reenactors, and speeches.
Okay, and I am sorry about that, John. I should have given you the microphone to go ahead and make that. You know what? So we have that on video. Maybe I'll have you come up here for a second and repeat that. Sorry. So, yeah. So, well, it just doesn't get captured on the video. So there you go.
So I captured on the video here. So I just remind everybody on September 20th is Broomfield Days, city and county, here in the park next to the museum. And the museum will be open. We'll be conducting tours, and we'll probably have some tables out in front to kind of welcome people. We get a lot of people on Broomfield Days. And then on November 11th is Veterans Day. We have a celebration or a ceremony on the front lawn. Music, reenactors, and speeches. So it should be a very good, and that'll be 11 o'clock on November 11th. So that's it. Thank you.
All right. And sorry about that, John. I should have had you come up here for it. All right. With that being said, we are going to go ahead and get straight to our subject today. Again, a fascinating topic, not just the topic itself, the history, but also a very interesting story about a connection made between these two men that I think you'll find every bit as fascinating. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mr. Terry Barnhart. If you guys give him a hand. And Terry's going to start us off, and then I think Michael's going to add a little bit. So make sure that your microphone's on, ready to go. Here's your pointer, and here we go.
Okay, I'm all set. Thanks, Don. And John, thank you very much. This is my second time that I've been here. About 30-some coffee and conversations ago, I was here and presented the history of my father's involvement in World War II. But in talking with Mike Fellows, I see him occasionally, I was telling him about Michael, my friend, at one particular battle that I had talked about, but I was telling him about our relationship that we had developed over the years in this particular village where Michael lives. And that has kind of blossomed into this. But before that, in April, the village, actually the town of Schmalenberg, which is the major community, and Oberkirchen is one of the smaller satellite communities around, had an 80th anniversary celebration, I guess, of the end of World War II. And so I went over and we did a presentation very similar to this. We'll talk about that as we go. So Michael and I, we've kind of developed this relationship since 1912, or 2012. And let's see, is this? That's the pointer. There we go. We did this, basically a unique relationship. We've called ourselves the War History Brothers. We've actually developed this brotherhood between us over this crazy battle that had happened in his village. Michael is a former retired village forester, and he spends a lot of time in the woods, and as he was walking around, he was finding things about the battle. And my father was in the battle, frontline infantryman with the 47th Infantry Regiment, Company E. So Oberkirchen is located kind of 1/3 of the way to, lost that, 1/3 of the way to Berlin from the Rhine River. And the star gives the approximate location in Germany where that is. This is the consolidated map of Germany after '89. And I first went to Oberkirchen in '95 with my parents. At the 50th anniversary, I kept bugging my dad, I want to see where you were in the war. And like a lot of veterans, he was resistant and whatever, but we finally convinced him, twisted his arm. And my mother, my wife, Margie, and I took him over, and we went to Oberkirchen as one of our stops. And I first met Michael. Well, I went back to the village in 2010 when the 9th Infantry Division Association, which I became a member of, which I'll mention briefly in a minute, did a plaque at the bridgehead at Remagen. And I went by myself into the village on a driving tour, and I met the mailman. And I bought him about 8 different beers at the hotel I was staying at. And he tells me, oh yeah, my dad, his father was dead, and he knew everybody in the village and around. And he said, yeah, the battle was terrific. And he said, the village turned hands at least 6 times. And I'm going, wow, I didn't know that, you know? And so that sparked my interest further, and then he introduced me to a couple other people, which was a restaurant man named George. He's a very good friend of Michael's, and that's how Michael and I met, was through George. And Margie and I went back in 2012 and met Michael, and the rest is history. And so we developed a brochure, 12-page brochure that basically Michael wrote, but I augmented it with American Army information. I translated that later in 2018, and then 2025 we had this joint. I went to Germany, and now he's come here to do this joint presentation. So I've researched my father's experience in World War II and went through all the American records. I spent quite a bit of time doing this. I talked about my dad died in 2006. I found 98 records or letters that he had written home, and that really gave me a lot of clues. And then I joined the 9th Infantry Division Association, which still continues today. And Margie and I are going in September to Arlington, Virginia, and we're going to the 80th annual reunion of that organization. And it's now run by sons and daughters like me. And we have also Vietnam veterans, because Westmoreland was in my father's unit and called up the 9th during the Vietnam War. He was head of the war in Vietnam. And so there was a relationship there. And so as Michael and I were researching this, I was coming up with some diaries and a book I've got up here by Bland and Jack Bland. And it talks about E Company, which my father was in. And Michael came up with a whole bunch of German diaries written from the German perspective of what was happening in the village. And all of a sudden we had this unique collection of stuff on both sides. And of course, Michael's interest is in the forest, and was able to locate a lot of the emplacements and materials that were left over during the war. And again, that's another unique perspective. And this was a copy of the article that we wrote. I have a copy up here. It's all in German, and I do have an American or an English version. And we went in April, as I mentioned, and this was the group that we presented to, and it was phenomenal. They provided me with an English interpreter, high school English teacher. The guy was really good. And these were all residents of this village. And I find that absolutely fascinating that these people really want to know what happened in their village. And one woman who was 93 got up and spoke, and this happened over the Easter weekend, and Sunday was her christening, I guess. Was that, she had a ceremony at church. She was 13. And the German army who was there allowed that to go on. And she got up and spoke about that. I couldn't believe it. And then I met another man who's not in this picture, who was 90, so he was 10 years old, not in this village, but a nearby village, who happened to be a colleague of Michael. He's a forester. And he remembers the troops my dad was in, went by his village. And this was the time during the war when there were black soldiers were starting to be interspersed into the American troops and integrating the two races in the Allied Army. And black soldiers were in his house. He told me all that, and it's kind of interesting. So, but this was very nice. I was impressed on how I was treated. They paid for my hotel room. We went out for dinner, and another man, unbeknownst to us, paid for our dinner and all these drinks. The next village over, he happened to be a big hotel owner. And he told me, he said, I learned things I never knew when I grew up in the village. And so it was very, very interesting. I'm going to go real quick through the 9th Infantry and the Battle of Oberkirchen. I'm not going to dwell a lot on it. But basically, this happened at the end of March. The 9th Infantry Division, which is part of the 1st Army, E, F, and G companies, H companies there too, but they were trucked all night. And Michael's got a picture that we'll show later of where my dad camped and getting ready to invade Oberkirchen to take it over. During this time, the 1st Army and the 4th Armored Division was surrounding the Ruhr Pocket, the industrial valley of Germany where a lot of the industry was. And they did a pincer movement and captured ultimately 350,000 German soldiers. And Oberkirchen was a key area on the southern part of this area. And they tried to contain the Germans in the pocket. And that's why Oberkirchen was so important. But it was really an urban warfare kind of situation. We'll talk about that in a second. The 9th Infantry was organized World War I, unorganized, and then is reorganized with World War II. They trained at Fort Bragg, which is now Fort Liberty, which may be Fort Bragg again, I guess. And they were in the entire war. They invaded North Africa, fought the French there briefly, the Vichy French, and later went through Sicily, went back to Britain, retrained, and then came in on Normandy on about day 4 or 5 and took the Cherbourg Peninsula. That was their claim to fame with the D-Day. Eventually, they marched through. They were on the periphery of the Battle of the Bulge, mainly because they were in the Hürtgen forest before that, pretty well impacted by that. So I think they were on a rest mode, but they were on the flank of the Battle of the Bulge. They went on through Oberkirchen, the Harz Forest, and or Harz Mountains, and then met the Russian near the Elbe River, the Mude River, I believe it is, which was a tributary. So the 9th Infantry was in the entire battle of World War II. There were almost 4,600 soldiers killed in action in World War II, and another, they were the third, next to the 3rd Army, they were the 2nd casualty rate in the war. So they took a significant impact. There was 24, Presidential Unit Citations was the highest award that a unit can receive. I forget what it's called now. It's not that. Do you know, Flint? They changed the name on it. So they were a significant unit and oftentimes overlooked. Their symbol was the octafoil, and it symbolizes 9 brothers surrounded by the one brother in the middle, 8 brothers surrounded by one brother. And they went through, my father did, across the bridge at Remagen in early March. He had breakfast on the other side 12 hours after the bridge had been captured. Their 47th was the first complete unit, I think, that was across the Rhine River since Napoleon. This is a map showing roughly the stylized route that they took, and you can see the Ruhr Pocket. I guess this doesn't work. The Ruhr Pocket here that was surrounded, and they went on over to meet the Russians. This is the Ruhr Pocket. Oberkirchen is here, and Paderborn is what I was trying to remember last night, is where the 2 units came together. And as a sideline, General Rose was the highest commanding general that was killed in World War II, and his father was a surgeon in Denver, and that's why it's called Rose Hospital. And that's, again, a significant kind of thing that happened at this point in time. He was the type of general, and there's an exhibit here. Flint has an exhibit here on him, and he was an upfront type commander. And so he was shot there kind of by accident, but they thought he was reaching for his shoulder holster, and he was trying to take it off. And anyway, so that's a sidelight. The 1st Army came here, the 9th Army and the 4th Artillery came around to the north. This is a picture of the village. It's a very nice, quaint village. It's one of my favorite places in Germany. It's timber frame, fretwerk, timber frame with stucco, slate roofs. Slate is an important thing that happened because there's a slate mine, and that's where the residents sought shelter, in the slate mine. And here's a picture of the village, and the reason that this became so important on the southern border of the Ruhr Pocket is this section of road right there. And that was the breakout point. The whole battle occurred basically around that area of the village. There were skirmishes elsewhere, but basically they were trying to control that road intersection to keep the Germans from escaping. Like I said, there were 350,000 Germans, very significant amount of military that was captured. This is a stylized map of the route. They started up in this area called Albertplatz. Michael's going to have a picture of that in a bit, but my father camped there. They split up in the various units. G Company and headquarters was in Markshaven, Hagen, and no, I'm wrong. And Vorwald, Markshaben is another story that we'll tell. They went down 2 different ways. There were tanks and tank destroyers that came down the road into the village, and there were skirmishes along the way down through there. And my father's unit on foot went through the forest in a couple different routes into the village. And the Germans, who were the Panzerlehr 130th, came in from the west side. These are pictures of during the battle. Like I said, it was an urban battle. They came in at, this happened to be on the 3rd. They camped on the 2nd, came in the morning of the 3rd. They were hoping to start out at 8 a.m. It was raining, and the radio transmission is, we have a lot of wet, cold soldiers here. They tried to pump them up with hot coffee and then send them down the hill. And they took the town about 3:45 in the afternoon. So yeah, we're good. Well, it wasn't good, because then there was a counterattack that happened. And again, like I said, this happened 10 or 12 times, or 6 or 7 times through the course of the next 2 days. It was really a significant deal in battle. I won't go into all the details that I've researched. This happens to be Volt, and we're going to talk about him in a second. It's very significant, but his house is burned. My father was, and this is Volt's house again. You can see the village. If you look real close, you can see smoke coming up. This is actually a picture I found from the battle. And this is a tank that one of the guys took out. I think it's a Mark IV, the German tank that they took out. So remember Volt and that name, because Michael's going to talk about that shortly. This is a Signal Corps photo of a Sherman tank that was there. If you'll notice the logs on the side, because the armor of those tanks, they were easy to knock out. So the guys would put logs on the side to help dissipate the charges that they were being fired at. And there happens to be a dead soldier laying here. These buildings still exist in the village.
In that picture, there was a person on the right, because you see the person on the right?
Oh,
Yes,
right here?
yeah. So what was that?
That's a German soldier who's dead, presumably. There were awards happening with this. I already mentioned that briefly, but the 47th Infantry received 2 presidential unit citations out of the 24 that the whole 47th received, and this was within a 3-week period. This is rather significant. Crossing the bridge at Remagen was one, and they held that. And my father was wounded there, went back for a week, and then came back in, and he was wounded by friendly fire, a 500-pound bomb, probably from a P-47 that came in. They were on the front lines, and at this point in the war, at Remagen Bridgehead, this was the leading edge of World War II in Europe. For that brief period of time, that was the big, right there. And that's where he was wounded. They dropped short of the German lines and got some of their own men. He had a concussion and bruises from shrapnel, but nothing other than that. But they took him out for a week, and he came back in. The second one was at Oberkirchen and containing that. There were 3 significant awards given at Oberkirchen. One is the 2nd Battalion Commander, Colonel Manis, and I talked to him one time before he died, and he was an interesting character. He's got a diary, but I can't seem to find it. But he has a diary I'd love to get my hands on. Captain Petty was head of E Company, and from what I can tell, he was really something too. Both those men were very brave. They did significant things. And I think Captain Petty is the one that took out that tank that I showed you a picture of. And a Silver Star was given to Private Lloyd Holder. He was my dad's platoon leader, as I understand, a temporary platoon leader. My father knew him, and he, as the story goes, he received this because, again, the lines were fluid back and forth, and he held off a German attack, told his men to drop back, presumably my father and the others, while he held off the Germans, and then he escaped some way. And this village is on a hillside, and some of the houses, he ran in a house upstairs, and on the other side, he came down a water gutter to escape. And the award also says he played dead because he was overrun. He played dead and then got up and joined his guys. He was the last one, like General Rose, killed in the E Company at the end of the war, within a week of the end of the war. So he was quite the character. I did talk to his sister, and she sent me photos of him. And this is him. And he had been in the war quite a long time and had been wounded, and I think broke his leg and went to England and came back. So he was a heck of a guy. And this is Colonel Manis there, and below him is Captain Petty. So these were the officers of E Company, or 47th, I'm sorry. And I did find this, finally, a picture that was taken on the 8th of May at the end of the war. My father is located in the red circle. We have a book here by Jack Bland, who should be in there also, and his family and I cannot seem to find him in the photo. But if you look on some of these guys, this guy here, he's a BAR gunner, the big rifle that they're carrying. They often had suspenders because everything was heavy. It looks like he just came in from patrol. So this is, I was lucky to find this from Captain Petty's daughter, who had it in a foot locker, and I tracked her down, and because she was a librarian, and talked to her husband. He was sympathetic to me. She could care less, but he's the one that got the foot locker and came up with these photos. And yeah, it's amazing. So that's my part of it. I'm going to let Michael speak next and tell you some interesting stories. Yes.
Quick question. How many residents were there in that town, and did they all seek safety during these
Yeah,
battles?
there were, how many residents? 300 people in Oberkirchen then?
Then,
300 to 500?
500.
Yeah, 3 to 5, yeah. It wasn't big, but as this battle was waging on, there were slate mines up the valley that my dad had passed, and the residents either went to their cellars, the killer, or they went to the slate mine. And the slate mine had problems too because so many people were in there. The air was bad. People, babies and children, crying and things like that. It was not a good time. But yeah, it was rather significant.
And how many days total did this last?
The battle was about 3 days, 2.5 days.
So they were in those mines for about 3 days.
Yeah, 2 to 3 days, yeah. They didn't go there right away, I don't think. Some of them did, maybe, sought shelter. There was a lot of artillery coming in, and there were aerial support with fighter bombers coming in, and Michael's going to show some pictures of that. And that's how one of these buildings burned and whatever. So they eventually got out, and one of the man, George Drost's sister, was cold, and she went back to the house to get a blanket and was killed by shrapnel from a bomb. And that was a civilian that we know for sure that was killed.
Terry, your father was how old?
19.
He was 19.
19. We had an interview. The picture of both us together was taken by a reporter that Michael had and yeah, that picture on the brochure. And this reporter was for a German newspaper, a local newspaper, and she was kind of lukewarm on all this. She was, yeah, okay, I'll come over and talk to these guys. But in the course of a conversation, she asked that question: how old was your father? And I said 19. And her demeanor totally changed. She had a 19-year-old son. And then all of a sudden she was interested. So I found that kind of amazing. So, all right, I'm done. Another one? Yes, sir.
What is Forester? What is that?
Forester.
When you talked about Forester.
Well, he's going to explain that.
Oh, okay.
Explain what the forester is.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So, chapter 2. It's an honor for me to be here in the Veterans Museum in Broomfield. I'll present you 2 short stories of the Battle of Oberkirchen from the German point of view. But first, who I am. I was born, my name is Michael Keuthen. It's a typical German name, I think. The H is not spoken. And I spell it in NATO alphabet. Kilo Echo Uniform Tango Hotel, Keut, is a kind of beer in the Middle Age. And I think I like beer. I think that's relation to my name.
Dark beer, what kind?
German, the American is also good. This is blonde beer and Pilsner. And, I was born in 1960 in Essen, a town in the Ruhr area, in the federal state North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany. After the high school, I think it's a gymnasium, I served 2 years in the German armed forces called Bundeswehr. Then I studied forestry and afterwards took over a forest district in Sauerland, a rural region with a high proportion of forest in the southeast of North Rhine-Westphalia. This is also where the roots of my family lie. I'm interested in regional history as a local historian, in addition to hunting and management my own ancestral forest. You see, Germany has 83 million inhabitants. North Rhine-Westphalia is 18 million. It's very much people. Most populous federal states of Germany, forest share 27%, private forest ownership 63%. This is all the private. Hochsauerland County, 260 inhabitants, forest share 50 and 56%. Then we have the town of Schmallenberg, about 25 inhabitants in 84 villages. It's one town. And then we have the village of Oberkirchen, about 780 inhabitants today. So we see This is the Ruhrgebiet, Essen, Dortmund. I was born in Essen, Dortmund. This is the Ruhrgebiet with steel engineering and carbon mines, I think. And Schmallenberg is in the southeast, this called Sauerland. My place of work was located between 1991 up to 2023 in and around the village of Oberkirchen, a part of the town Schmallenberg. Oh. Oberkirchen is located in a protected southern valley on the river Lenne, and is a typical half-timbered village. The inhabitants first lived from agriculture and forestry, and later, at the beginning of the 20th century, from tourism too. Oberkirchen was first mentioned in literature in 1245. However, investigations of the church records indicate that it exists before the year 1000. If you want more information, I have here you can take a look in this book. It's a present for the museum. If you can.
Thank you very much.
Normally, let's now to the forest. Normally, clear cutting is not used in German forestry management. Rather, we selectively thin the trees according to tree quality. Thinning helps to promote better growth. To do this, we remove poorly growing trees. You see on the left side, we have a Chinese bird. It's a Chinesenbart. Chinesen, I like a Chinese. And this is normally throwing where a branch is. And on the right side, damage to trees. In this case, shrapnel grows in a beech tree. And you can see that there is anything in the tree. During my forestry work, I repeatedly became aware of the fighting around Oberkirchen. For example, there were shrapnel scares in the many tree trunks. In some places, I would also find repressions of foxholes in the forest floor. The bomb hopper, but it's not named bomb hopper. Crater. It's a translation app. This is near the junction road to Bad Berleburg, where the American-US forces come to Oberkirchen. They came from the left and went to the right side. Albrechtsplatz. And this is one of where the bombs fall down. And when I look on the treetops, I fall in this bomb holes or fox holes. I look upon and then, what's that? I didn't know what it is.
My father slept there.
Yeah.
That's where they organized before they went to the village the night before.
Then we have memories of war. For example, air traffic control structures. You see they were looking at the aeroplanes. And today it is a weekend house. Or we have soldier graves and war memorials. War memorials. This is in the village that we find in the forest. And so I'm interested in what happens here, what happened here. Another memorial of the war, maps and weapons. First, the old map from the German forces. I found it was by a grave care. It's named in Germany Kriegsgräberfürsorge. They are looking for the graves of the soldiers, German soldiers. And then we have on the left side weapons like guns and grenades. We found there, the farmers found it, and on the other side grenades. This is a German grenade. And then we have many memories of war, diaries, books, and interviews. The story Battle for Oberkirchen, based, for example, on diaries, memories, and interviews of the following contemporary witnesses. The following are interesting. This diaries is from Gisela Hören. She was 19 years. Karl Ramsleben, he was a young German soldier, also 19 years, and they wrote about their experience in the Battle of Oberkirchen. Then we have a lot of books, but it's not Oberkirchen, it's the Ruhr Castle, we call it. And the following interesting incidents. This is Jerry named in Alfons Schauerte, born in 1929. He was 16 years old and lived with his family in Markeshagen. Today he is 96 years old and my neighbor in Oberkirchen. He told me about the death of Private First Class Walter McLinley. This story is also recorded in the US Army records and even gives the name of the jeep which was stolen by German officers. Then we have Hermann Vogt, the grandson of F.C. Vogt. He told me about the death of his grandfather. It so happens that F.C. Vogt was likely shot by someone in Terry's father's platoon who were seeking refuge during the battle in the Bahn. And not forgetting the countless documents of Terry Barnhart, provided to me, give an overall picture of the Battle of Oberkirchen from the American Army perspective. In 2012, when Terry and his wife Maggie visited Oberkirchen, I was invited to meet them, and we talked about many things about the battle in our village. This was the beginning of the war history, brothers. Now I will tell you the two short stories. The story of F.C. Vogt. F.C. is the name Franz Kaspar. Franz Kaspar. Tuesday, April the 3rd, 1945, Oberkirchen. During the battle, a phosphorus bomb from a P-45 bomber hits Vogt's house. A second high explosive bomb lands in the street and does not detonate. It was found and dug up and removed during the 60s. With their house on fire, the Vogt family tried to save objects and take them to safety on the opposite side of the street into the house called Vogt's Spieker. It's named Vogt's Bahn. Yes, it's on the left side there. American soldiers are already in that house at the time. A soldier observes something moving in the vaulted cellar of the burning house. It is Franz Kaspar Vogt, known as F.C., and his agricultural assistant. The soldier storms across the street. F.C. Vogt wildly gesticulates with his arms, whereupon the soldier shoots him. F.C. Vogt is seriously wounded by a shot to the stomach. The shot bounded over a cigarette case in his stomach and taken by the Americans to a military hospital in Korbach, 50 kilometers from Oberkirchen, where he dies the next day. As he has no identity papers with him, his fate could only be clarified 14 years later in 1959. There was a man, unknown man. He went about the cemetery and saw, oh, he is lying, or was lying a man from Oberkirchen. I knew Oberkirchen, and he went to Oberkirchen and asked, do you know Friedrich Karl Vogt? Not Franz Kaspar, Friedrich Karl. And no, he is no Friedrich Karl Vogt, no. And then one of the inhabitants said, oh, you mean F.C. Vogt, Franz Kaspar, yes. And so he came back to Oberkirchen in 1949. Yes. I could give the death certification to the grandson of FC Vogt. He was buried in Korbach as Friedrich Karl. During the April of 2025 Oberkirchen event, the grandson of FC Vogt, Hermann, brought the grey coat that FC was wearing when shot by a small caliber pistol. The bullet hole is visible in the attached photo. There. This was the first story. And now the story of Walter F. McLinley, told by my neighbor. Wednesday, April the 4th, 1945, Markeshagen. In Fleckenberg, a village near Schmallenberg, a German officer and his orderly are planning to steal a vehicle from the Americans because their own vehicle is broken. The conditions are favorable because it's not too dark, a few days after the full moon. So on the night of April the 3rd to the 4th, they make their way to Vorwald by an unknown means. At this time, there is still fierce fighting in Oberkirchen. There are a lot of American soldiers in Vorwald, the next village, from G Company. The two German soldiers must have very good maps or local knowledges because they snuck on to Markeshagen, a single detached house. Early in the morning at around 3 or 4 o'clock, 16-year-old Alphonse Schauerte is woken up by a loud bang. He was sleeping in one of the rooms directly above the front door of the house. He struggled to reach the lower floor through the rubble. The entrance area is completely destroyed. Outside, there are shards of glass, along with the pickup of a German officer and the barrel of a bazooka. The American Jeep parked in front of the house is gone. Radio operator, my neighbor, the house, this is a radio operator, Walter F. McLinley, presumably alerted by the engine starting, rushed outside as the German officer fired the bazooka at the house at the same moment. The blast killed Walter McLinley. After the attack, the German soldiers flee in the American Jeep back to Fleckenberg. Nothing is known about their identity or fate. The body of Walter McLinley was collected after about an hour, and the American soldiers moved on. As a result, the American troops fighting in Oberkirchen had lost their only jeep to bring food and ammunition to them during the fighting. So, this was a brief overview of the fights in Oberkirchen from a German perspective. Thank you for your attention. I hope my English was...
Very good, very good. Much better than our German. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Michael, in your duty as Waldmeister,
Yeah.
have you come across live munitions and any human remains from the battle?
Ammunition, I found what's called a handgranate.
And it was still...
Yes, and then you must call the specialists and, oh, hand grenade. He put on his handschuhe, drops, take it in the bus, away. Yes, we find always ammunitions, yes.
And human remains, bones?
Bones, not bones. No, I didn't found, or I didn't know that there were any bones. So,
Yeah.
Can I?
please.
You had such precise information. They'd taken a picture of his suit jacket, right?
Yes.
And so who did all that and how did you find it?
You didn't tell that too. I started talking about staying in the hotel.
Like that?
This is from the grandson of FC Vogt, and I think, I'm not sure, but when he was wounded, they put off the jacket in the house and then put or transported FC to the hospital, I think.
Okay, so I have another question, which is, since Mr. Bott was not in a military, why was he shot? I know that's an odd question.
He was a military in holiday, but he knows he was in holiday, and he has this jacket. It could be that the American soldier feared that it was a soldier because of the black jacket.
It's the same, similar color as the German uniforms.
Yes, yes, maybe.
And it may be actually part of the uniform, I don't know.
FC Vogt shouted, Kamerad, no, nicht schießen, Kamerad, do not shoot. But he I think he feared, and he's.
Yes.
And my father was in the barn at one point across the street. So his platoon, I am fairly certain that was someone in his platoon, and it could have been an officer because it's a small caliber handgun. It's not a
rifle.
it's not a rifle.
A rifle.
What's that called?
Well, 30-06.
Yeah, 30-06. It's not a big bullet, it's a little guy. But it hit there, and they had, which we think they've lost now, the cigarette case that was damaged. And I feel that turned the bullet, probably hit his stomach, and he probably bled to death. But the U.S. Army took him away and tried to save him, but that's what we hear.
I saw the cigarette case. I saw it, but we don't know where it is now. I saw it that the rifle goes to his stomach.
Well, then say about the son.
Yeah, well, Herman, who's the grandson of F.C. Vogt, we stayed at this rebuilt house, hotel, in 1995. And his father was 13 when his father was killed?
Or maybe.
About. And he had to take over the business. And my parents and Margie and I stayed in the hotel. They were nice people, but until they kind of found out my dad was a soldier, and they were, yeah, they kind of stood off a little bit with us.
A lot.
But we met Herman later, who's a friend of Michael's, wonderful man. And one time, Herman told Margie, as we were copying something on his printer, he says to Margie, "We are glad you won the war." And she was sort of taken back by that. And he's gone, because we would all be speaking Russian. That's the perspective there. And I found that true in the rest of the village, and our performance at the shooting Halle in April when I was there. The village people really want to know this, and the war thing is kind of a sideline. I mean, it's not a focus, but it's interesting to them. And I think that attitude is prevalent today, that people want to know and don't have hard feelings.
Oh.
And I find that absolutely amazing. So one more thing, and I'll answer your question. When I was in the hotel after our presentation in April, I come back, and the hotel man, and I'm the only one there, and I had stayed there before. It's a nice, comfortable place. And the hotel man there, who's from Holland, I think, he's from Holland, he bought this. And it had been in the family before for 250 years. And I knew the people that had relatives who originally owned it. And then he bought it from them. But he says, "I have something for you." After we were talking about, and he didn't attend the thing, he went to the basement and came up with this 90 millimeter tank shell. It's from a M36, you said, part of the 899th tank destroyer platoon, or I'm not quite sure what the organization was, but they were part of the battle, and they came down the road and came in the village, and near where they entered the village is where this hotel is, and he gave me this, and I'm going, wow, that's really cool. It's from the battle. It's dated on the bottom, 1942. And he had it in the basement, and I brought it home in the airplane.
How did you two meet?
Through George. His good friend George, who took this picture of the bomb that was found in the street in front of his restaurant, I met through the mailman and another man, and we got to the barman, George, and I found out that Michael had been doing the research on these diaries, and Gisela, what was her name?
Gisela.
Yeah, Gisela Horan. He gave me a copy of this, and I have friends in Frankfurt I was staying with, and I took the diary back to her, and I hadn't met Michael yet. And we call my friend Krista Mother Hen, because she looks out for me when we're there all the time. I don't speak German, and she has a problem with that. She thinks that I need help. I probably do, but anyway, she translated that diary for me of this 19-year-old who kept a complete diary of what happened during the battle and afterwards. And we just recently learned when I was there in 18, I think, that she had died then. I think she died about 18 or 19.
Yeah.
Somewhere. So I didn't get to meet her. I'd loved to have met her. But, so, now there was a question over here.
Sure, real quickly though, if I could go real fast. You were saying, Terry, it'd be okay if we pass that shell around? If we
Yeah,
could
sure.
Actually take a look at it?
Yeah, I don't care.
A little closer? Yeah. And then I had a real quick question for Michael. Michael, you were talking about people and what they think of the Americans coming in and war and everything like that. How about the younger people though? Because it seemed like in the picture of the Schützenhof, right, that it was mainly older people or people over 40 or so. But the youth, the younger in Germany, are they interested in this story? Are they learning about it?
I was surprised that so many of young people came to the presentation. They are very interested, but there is no discussion about the war. No discussion. It's history and it's okay. But I think most of them was in the age of our son, 30 behind 30, and they're very interesting in the local history of Oberkirchen, and the Second World War is one of the history of Oberkirchen.
In an earlier photo, you had what appeared to be air traffic controllers, and it looked like a number of women there. Were the women the controllers?
No, in this case we have only men.
So the bottom left photo?
That's a weekend house. It's after the war.
Okay.
After war. This is the same house, and the house was used as a weekend house, and so the ladies are there.
And I think this up on the
Lingelscheid, yeah.
Lingelscheid, that's where my friend who wrote the diary, Jack Bland, he was with a different platoon in E Company, and they were in reserve and stayed in that house. And that's above the battle area down, and they were set to come in if they were needed in the village, but he didn't go down, so he didn't participate in that. But it's in his book.
But this was on the other side.
Yeah.
And when the American came, they were not there in the house. They cut. When the Americans came, they cut and said, "Go home." We go home.
Did you say that shell was from the 89th or 899th?
899th. Yeah. tank destroyer. And I think it was an M36, which had the type of destroyer that had just been introduced into the war. It was a new improved model that came in like February or something like that, I read. And a tank destroyer is unlike a tank. I don't think you can aim it.
You have to move the whole.
You have to move the whole unit.
The M36 had a turret.
Did it have?
It had
Okay.
an open turret, and that was one of the problems.
Yeah,
with it.
and that's, yeah, it wasn't enclosed in a shell like a Sherman tank where they're somewhat protected. It was open for some reason, and they had to come in and modify it, as I read later, with some kind of a roof to keep the shrapnel and things coming in to wound the operators.
We have a model of that.
Is it
up in
upstairs?
Our European
Yeah.
theater room.
I wanted to follow up, and I'm sorry I didn't do this in the beginning. You mentioned the youth, and I've got 3 of my 5 grandchildren here. My daughter and my son and my daughter's family and her husband are here. And this is probably the first time they've heard about their great-grandfather in the war. So we're trying to get them exposed to a little bit because this is all kind of important, I think. And it ties into the museum. Thank you for having us. This was,
Freedom isn't free.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions? Any other questions?
Do you live here or do you live in Germany?
Germany.
You're doing
Yes, yes. Only we made holiday for 14 years with my wife. She's a little bit shy. We is the 3rd time in America, and we make holiday Yellowstone, Cody, Mount St. Rushmore, Mount Rushmore, Crazy Horse, then Scotts Bluff. And on Monday we fly to Germany. It's a special work today.
Thank you for coming.
Sehr schön, sehr schön.
Okay.
One last question here, if we can.
Vielen Dank. I really enjoyed your talk, and I learned about the German point of view in World War II. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And we would like to go ahead and present Terry and Michael with a little token of our appreciation, a challenge coin from the museum for visiting here today. And also, folks, for Michael and his wife, Sylvia, since they traveled such a long distance to come and present here today, we have a cake in the library, and we're inviting folks to come in and have a piece of cake. I'm not sure it's German chocolate, but it is chocolate. So, all right.
They just call it chocolate there.
Exactly. All right. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you.